Welcome to our year in review, the yearly wrap up from the Conversation Project. This is for the year ending 2023. I am still Jay Cleveland Payne, still here despite all that we've been through, and we'll get to some we've been through literally inside of this yearly wrap up because me, a big part of my struggle, has been a part of all of our struggles of news this last year. Now, the Conversation Project provides a lot of things to have conversations on news stories, topical stories, politics, current events, things going on. Every single weekday morning, we put out something called Things You Might Have Heard, which gives you 8 to 10 stories based on the prior day or weekend that you say are conversational that people want to chat about. And then we have a weekly wrap up, which gives you the top 10 stories per your peer engagement that you say were tops for that 7-day span. We're going to go through a very quick jaunt through the year, one story per month while many things happened in this year that were hard to forget. We're going to focus on one highlighted story for a month that basically either overtook the month or was just so great or meant something to me so much. It is what's going on. So 12 months of the year, we'll have we'll sell you some stuff at the end of it because we got to try to make some things. But we're going to go through very quickly, as quickly as possible, because we want this year over as quickly as possible. 12 big events, 12 big news stories, month by month coming on. Check out our website. This is theconversationproject.com. More details on how we do this every single day. You can get explanations on the feeds, where you can find us every day, and how you can help us progress on other things. We'll do more of that stuff at the end of the full listing of stories here. And we always remind you can email us at theconversationinbox@gmail.com. You can pull it up right now while you're watching this and give me the feedback for this right here, or give us comments wherever you're finding this video or audio if you're listening to the audio replay. Start off, let's do from the beginning. It's January. Actually, well, quick reminder that the Conversation Project lives at thistheconversationproject.com. Slides out of order, so bear with me on this one. So, as we just said, stop by our website, see what you can do to see what we have going on, and find out more about us. Let's get into the months of the year. And starting off the first month of the year, January, Candace Owens declares, "I don't think Andrew Tate is a rapist." Same day alleged text reveals he said he loves raping. A few months later, we'd have the big interview, the Tate and Owens interview that would really cause a kerfuffle. But this one, we want to get it right off the bat because other things happened in that month. Owens, who has a very controversial show and has been controversial with her handlers on the show, actually disagreeing with them, which had an issue, but they keep her on because the ratings, the clicks, people are watching it. I'm not sure why. She had a thing for the Andrew Tate year where he was, of course, arrested last year in 2022 on house arrest still for basically human trafficking, the whole pizza box thing. Beginning of the year, Owens came out saying that no, she doesn't think he's a rapist. He's being blasted. He's actually a staunch conservative who wants to take care of men, and ran webcams of women doing sex acts or whatever. And he of course had the tapes and the tweets saying no, he's got the PhD, the player degree, and he's a pimp, and the fact that he likes raping. And that he uses things like sex and manipulation to get people to do things like he wants, to include making videos and giving him all the money off of OnlyFans and things like that. She delivered the commentary the same day that the Vice World News reported that it had obtained some text messages about, the rape stuff and liking rape and being something as a tool from Andrew Tate. Doesn't really work out that well when you put a declaration that you support somebody the same day the things that you say you support him for or that you say he didn't do, he kind of said he did. Andrew Tate had a pretty big year this year. Owens had also a pretty big year this year. But this is the way he sparked us off. As we said, a few months later, they'd have the big interview that would cause a big kerfuffle. And have one of my largest actual viral moments of the year when I discussed the fact that I don't understand who these people are. How can anybody support Andrew Tate? And I decided this year to stop wanting to hug Candace Owens and just sort of see her for what she is and say out loud what she is. She's a really, really horrible person and a grifter. February, the shortest month of the year, and this year we have a very short and kind of a interesting take to what to give you for this month. Rick Isley sues Yung Gravy for impersonating his voice from the Never Gonna Give You Up. Rick Isley suing rapper Yung Gravy, and there's a rapper named Yung Gravy, believe it or not, allegedly impersonating his voice on his latest track called Betty, Get My Money. And of course, used a fake voice, a sampled voice, a impersonated voice of Rick Isley in the remake. So essentially, Rick Isley wants some money for being in the music track because it should be his voice. It's supposed to be his voice. It's hinted at it's him. However, it's not him. Rick Isley in the news in 2023 for Never Gonna Give You Up, more or less. And it's because he sued a guy named Young Gravy for putting his voice into his album. That's how 2023 started off. It gets even weirder from here. Let's go to March. In March, we had the difficult issue with Clay Walker, who issued a statement after audio recording leaked of him scolding and threatening his tour bus driver. Now, he berated his tour bus driver in a profanity-laced rant, threatened him. The driver's going to, get in touch with the tour bus company and get rid of him, fire him, get somebody else to drive it. Now, the only sad thing about this was the fact that it was from literally like months prior, years prior. It wasn't something that was happening like as going on, something somebody recorded and put in after a concert like recently. It's an old recording. And so it just sort of showed more or less the true Clay Walker colors. He had to deal with this for a while, a lot of bullying allegations, a lot of TikTokers are jumping on the bandwagon of this one. And the actual video amassed about 162 views in about 24 hours. 162,000 views, I should say, in about 24 hours. As we said, he had to explain himself, and the big explanation was this was something that was actually an older video from older incidents. So while it was bad, it wasn't quite as bad as it could have been because it wasn't yesterday. Clay Walker on his tour to recover his actual career, and that's happening more or less right now. People are starting to come back. I'm not sure they fall in love with Clay Walker. I'm not a fan, so I can't really say, but they are warming back up to him after a while. So the April story, and this is a larger story than put here, but we're putting it down as the tornadoes in Arkansas, the Arkansas tornado of March 31st. And this is big, literally for me, because I lived through the Arkansas tornado of March 31st. I sat at my daughter's school sitting with the sirens going off because they knew storms were coming, so they released the kids from school early. I got there right as sirens went off, right before the time to let them out. So they brought all the parents in to sit and wait it out. And an actual tornado formed, went past us, to be honest, and up into my neighborhood and destroyed my house. It is now January and almost going on, or not quite January as I record this. It's almost there, a few days before, and we still don't have a house. We had to take the month off because we had to find a place to live, let alone sit someplace and record these videos. Here's some details that happened from the actual storm to just give you some perspective to what went down. A long-track EF3 wedge tornado developed in Martinsdale, Arkansas at 2:18 Central Time, caused minor damage before moving into Chenal Valley area, western Little Rock at EF1 intensity. The tornado, after actually checked, essentially went back and forth. It moved in and then powered back up, rolled all the way through what's west central Little Rock, all the way down the interstate essentially, and then into other cities, including a city called Jacksonville, North Little Rock as well, destroying lives and property going forward. The most amazing thing was no one was hurt in the Little Rock section of the tornado. No one was hurt in the North Little Rock section. And the really interesting thing is there's a slide, literally indestructible slide that has survived all sorts of fires and all sorts of destruction in a parkway. You can see pictures of trees falling down from the tornado flying through the park, and that ugly slide is still there, just non-pulsed. There were some injuries and a fatality later from the Jacksonville hit of the tornado. As I said, this is now going on 9-10 months of work. There's so many people in my neighborhood who have not even gotten a check to start getting started. There are people who are dealing with things. We've been dealing with a rebuild for about 6 months, and it has been terror and just torture and going forward on that end. But the biggest thing is some people have left. Some people are still trying to figure out what to do on. And we're learning, we people living in this neighborhood in the middle of Arkansas, because tornadoes happen in smaller cities and they rebuild all the time. This is the middle of a larger metropolitan city, which was helpless for what's going on. If you want to chat more about how we got through this, you can reach out to me because we're still going through this. As I said, we don't have a house. We're fine. We just need our house and regular stability coming back. But this was the story for April, which overtook everything because it literally took out the April editions of any news we had. We had no place to sit, no place to work. When we finally found a place to get gathered, had to rebuild the studio and work things up and kind of start from scratch. Luckily, I think I did a good job of building on what I had going forward, but you are the judge of that one. Back to more strategic news, if you want to call it that. Prince Harry and Meghan were involved in a near catastrophic car chase involving paparazzi in New York City. This is a story that got out of hand very quickly, and this is more or less the beginning of the end of people giving up on their love for the Sussexes. The Sussexes were pursued by photographers after leaving the Women of Vision Awards. No one was hurt, but essentially, instead of taking the short route to wherever they were staying, they sort of went on a car chase to kind of dodge the paparazzi. They didn't want them to know where they were staying, so they kind of tried to do the little duck and weave, and it turned into a very serious situation. As I said, the bigger story with this are the bigger stories coming forward in this year from Harry and Meghan, where this is the beginning, the end of them falling out of love with folks, or folks falling out of love with them. Harry and Meghan had a large year of hatred, losing things, including some contracts, some book deals, a little less clout overseas in England, and of course their Spotify deal, which a lot of people lost their Spotify deals, so that's not anything that's necessarily out of reason for them. But a lot of people stopped loving the Harry and Meghan stuff. The shine was off that rose bloom was basically falling from their stature going forward. Oh, they are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. They're still taken care of. Just the sort of love and sycophant just sort of following of them started to die in May. Let's move on to June. Headline for this month that we picked was, the pilot and 4 passengers of the Titan submarine are dead, U.S. Coast Guard says. And we're using that title, that headline, because that's the most jarring of what we went through in the couple of days as we followed the saga of the Titan submersible, not actually a submarine, to the people who went down to their depths. What was actually a sort of a kind of big fun story, this submersible thing milled with essentially, parts off the shelf at Radio Shack and literally a controller from a video game controller to drive the thing. No windows, just cameras. You had to sit on the floor, basically cross-legged, just kind of stay in the thing, and taking about up to 6 people at a time, 5 people in this time, including a young man, a rich guy taking his young son down to the bottom of the ocean because he could, and no fault on that one. Just the machine, the actual submersible, which a lot of people have basically kind of shook their head at and said, I don't know about this thing. But I already made a few successful trips down to the Titanic wreckage to see it from the video camera view and say you went down to see the Titanic. Something happened. Essentially, it's a hole, and the hole, there was some sort of breach into the hull. The ship went down. It communicates with the surface via cell phone and via pinging of the internet. It lost communication. They heard some pings, but at that point, the message to tell it to come back up land because something's wrong did not make it. All 5 people now under the sea forever. This was a very sad, and while there were lots and lots of people giving hope that they were down there with enough air and they can get down there to retrieve it, by the time they actually had a chance to retrieve it, it was pretty much not a thing. Let's talk about July. Carly Russell found, missing Hoover, Alabama woman returned home. This was an odd year for news, obviously, and this is one of the odder stories that happened. Carly Russell was a young woman from Alabama. She was driving home from work one night, and she saw a toddler walking across the street, and was like, wow, this is not good. Went to go sort of retrieve the toddler and was kidnapped. Except she wasn't kidnapped, and she didn't see a toddler. It was literally all a very weird and very elaborate ruse that was essentially a call for some sort of attention. It's hard to explain it without even, it's hard to replay the whole scene back. You just have to go back and look it up. If you've forgotten about Carly Russell, go find her again and see what we went through. Obviously, she was charged for all sorts of things and wasting all of our time for a few days trying to find her, when she just showed up back at home one day and just kind of was like, yeah, I'm back. Carly Russell, one of the weirder stories from the season, and it's got even weirder. We are, we're still praying for Carly. We're hoping that she's doing very well at this point, and was doing better at the end of the ordeal. But obviously, this was something that was a precursor of something much, much larger going on in her life. Rolling through summer, getting to August. Oliver Anthony Music's Rich Men North of Richmond debuts at number one on the Billboard Hot 100. A bluegrass song by a man who goes by Oliver Anthony. Oliver Anthony Music. He's that's his stage name. That's real. He's real. He has a real actual name. But that's what he goes by for his music life. And he's actually a pretty successful guy. He was doing fairly well, very well beforehand. He just wasn't known by many folks. And afterwards, he still kept doing great with this big number one hit, because he had this song that went viral called Rich Men North of Richmond, which essentially complained about all the folks in Washington, which got a lot of love from conservatives saying, see, this is what the Democrats get for doing such bad things. Some guy just like us is singing about that Joe Biden guy, is what goes on. And then Oliver Anthony Music said, actually, I'm talking about y'all too. And then the whole thing went kablooey, and he's just all over the place. He was offered a big fat record deal, which he turned down because he's doing fine on his own. He actually was playing some pretty big festivals beforehand, got a few bigger gigs before this. But Oliver Anthony Music, the guy singing Rich Men North of Richmond, the anthem about profanity-laced anthem, if you will, about the fact that the folks in government, the rich men who live and work north of Richmond, are basically screwing us over with stuff, because they are. All of them are. Both sides are. All three sides. Even the independents are, because they want a chance getting in there mucking around as well. They just don't have enough juice to get there. Anthony Oliver and his music brought to us what was pretty obvious, except to the Republicans, who thought it was a slant at one slide when it was actually fingers pointing right at them. Let's move on to September. And in this month, we spotlighted this story. Aaron Rodgers leaves with injury on first Jets possession. Aaron Rodgers did his move from Green Bay to New York, basically following the footsteps of that past guy from Green Bay who went to New York, who, although he didn't really start in Atlanta like he did, who knows where he'll end up next. Right now, he's gone on a 2-year contract and was supposed to bring life to New York and make the Jets relevant again. His first drive, I think 3 plays in, if I remember properly, he went down with a leg injury. He was out for the season. Now, what was really sort of the thing was they sort of strung along the fact that he could come back if the Jets could magically make the playoffs. Once they were eliminated from the playoffs fairly recently, about 2 weeks ago, one of the earlier teams do not make it into the playoffs because they weren't very good, Rodgers said, yeah, I'm not coming back this year. More or less, he's coming back next year after his rehab is good to get that second-year money for his contract, unless they can make a big deal to get him out of New York. We'll see how the Jets do next year, because this year, not worth the effort. Moving on to October, and for this month, the spotlighted, highlighted story we have is Taylor Swift. And she was on the path to overtaking everything starting in actually September and rolling all the way through the rest of the year. She has basically blown everybody away. She was already doing big with her tour, and this is the actual highlight we got, which basically said it all. Taylor Swift reportedly really likes Travis Kelce and doesn't want to be a distraction to him at games. Taylor Swift, a few weeks prior to this headline, started hanging out with Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs, the two-time champion Travis Kelce of the two-time champion recent Chiefs. And it became a big thing, which brought out a lot of Swifties to football games, and oddly enough, a lot of football guys to the Eras Tour movie. It just sort of happened. A melding of the worlds, if you will, that came about for what's going on. Trust me, the NFL loved it, despite all the kind of complaints and jokes about it. But Taylor Swift wanted to make sure that she was not a distraction while it was going on, even though essentially all the networks basically had a camera on Taylor Swift every time she came to a game, because at that point in time, it was news. It just was news. Taylor Swift, and as she overtook the world with her tour, which was the highest grossing tour ever, and her movie of the tour, which was a great thing to help to save the movie theaters for the weekend, for the weekend box offices, and just being Taylor Swift, winning some more court battles, recording some more music, being Taylor Swift, and hang out with Travis Kelce. That's all she did. Just a couple things. Nothing big for 2023 for her. In November, we mourn the loss of Matthew Perry, the Friends actor who died at the age of 54. We know more details about what happened with the actor at this point in time. He essentially died from the complications of ketamine. Ketamine is a drug used for many folks who are dealing with depression, dealing with addiction, and it's just a drug that sort of makes you mellow out, for lack of a better word, what's happening. He was in a hot tub, and he essentially had a very high dose of ketamine. Now, what got people concerned and took a while for the autopsy was he had had a dose of a few days prior, and the half-life of the actual drug is about a few hours. So so the dose from a few days prior was nowhere near enough to put anything in the system to deal with it. So they assumed he had gotten some pills or something from someplace else and taken them prior to getting to the hot tub. Because he was in the hot tub, he essentially lost control of his muscles, lost control of his ability to move, fell underwater, and because he could not escape his predicament, drowned. For cause of death, drowning from a issue as a relevancy from the side effects of ketamine. Very sad loss on Matthew Perry. A lot of people celebrating him, his life in the show Friends, things he did along the line ways, and of course, him being a champion for addiction and essentially being a person showing off how he has suffered and how he has persevered in the latter years of his life as an addict and trying to evolve. Very sad for this to happen. And the final story of the year that we're putting out there, even though we wrapped this up fairly early and put this in there, even though there was still more month to go, we went with this one because it was a big one and it is a larger one, even though we actually had a few more shootings before we wrapped up the year. December, we are spotlighting the Las Vegas shooting suspect that was Professor, who recently applied for jobs at UNLV. A person who applied for jobs at UNLV shot up the campus early in December, killing 3 people. He was a professor from around the area in Nevada. He was trying to get jobs. He put in various applications around the area, around the state. He was known for being a bit erratic, a bit of a kind of a weirdo, if you will, and didn't get the job. Now, when he went to the school that day, he did actually go with a list of people who I guess he meant to confront, people that were a part of the committees to hire and fire, in which he didn't get hired. So that's essentially who he was looking for. Those were the folks he confronted. He confronted students and some other professors who were in the building. But this was a very sad story that went through. Like I said, we have more details on this after we actually pulled this out. And there were actually more shootings of this kind in the month of December. So December we did not get out of it in the actual real time on a very good note. But this is a story that we're highlighted to spotlight for December of 2023. Now, let's do 2 very quick ads because we have to try to pay for this stuff. Ground News is a newer sponsor to the Conversation Project, but not a new app. We've been using it for a while to help us gather news in our aggregation every single day. Ground News allows you to see news from all perspectives. They will take a news story or a topic or a headline and give you who's covering it, what outlets are covering it, and how they lean in the actual perspective, whether they lean towards the right or the left, conservative or liberal, or they're more independent. You can see what's going on. The biggest thing you get from Ground News, you can find out what stories literally aren't being covered. They pop up various different stories that have very little coverage, or they get a lot of slanted coverage, so you can see what the other side is talking about that your side isn't, or what your side is talking about a lot that the other side is trying to ignore and get away with. You can check out Ground News by going to our link at our website. This is theconversationproject.com/ground news. This is an affiliate link, so if you click on this link, what you'll get is Ground News, a chance to subscribe to the service, and we get a little commission from you using it. Ground News is a great way to get connected to news stories all day long. When you're not checking our aggregated stories or things in our feeds, you can see what's going on and see where it's coming from using Ground News. We also want to thank and highlight the sponsor called Resume Solutions. This is a new year coming up in days as we're working this thing, and this may be the year you need to get that new job. Resume Solution may help you with that. They will guarantee you more interviews by helping you organize and rewrite your resume into a way that is going to be spectacular. More people are going to see it and engage with the resume. They can't guarantee you the job, but they can guarantee you that you'll get more interviews, more looks, more people will see that because of the resume. And most of their services are actually free. They do offer coaching beyond things as well, but you can get a free resume check from Resume Solution. And if you actually do purchase services from them, with this is affiliate link as well. This is theconversationproject.com/resume solution. This is theconversationproject.com/resume solution. Get yourself a new resume today. Now, this may not be just because you need a new job. Maybe you just need to update that CV and get your information lined up because you've been at some place for quite some time and want to make sure that your skills and listings are up to date. Resume Solution will take care of that for you. Check them out at our link. This is theconversationproject.com/resume solution. As we said, affiliate link, we get a commission for you using the service. Make sure you stop by our main website. This is theconversationproject.com for details on how we do the Conversation Project, how we do things you might have heard, the weekly wrap up, and the once a year thing called the yearly wrap up. Email us at theconversationinbox@gmail.com so you can tell us what to do, literally what to do, how to do things better and worse. And our feeds, how we get stories into these headline aggregating things. Go to Facebook at facebook.com/this is the Conversation Project. Go to Twitter, or now X, at th_conversation. And we post news stories about every 50 minutes for you to engage in. The higher engagement you give it to it, the better chance we have of talking about it because we believe you want to actually chat it up. Sometimes things get really, really highly engaged that we don't understand how they get there. But if the engagement says it's supposed to be there, it gets considered. We do a weekday morning show, and we may shift it to middays coming forward, that gives you 8 to 10 stories that are curated by you, or vetted by you, curated by me, vetted by you as conversational via these engagement scores. And the weekly wrap up, which this is a offshoot of it, doing the whole year, which gives you mostly by the actual numbers that are given in your engagement. This one, we looked at the months, looked at the things that were kind of highlighted, the biggest ones, and picked one for you. You're welcome. And I'm saying thank you. Hopefully you have some welcomes from me for the Conversation Project. Oh, one more thing, because the slide is here. This has been a trying year for me, and I know for a lot of folks it's been a trying year going forward, and the upcoming year may not be so great, especially since this is holiday season, still in the holiday season, and people tend to have issues making it through with all the joy and love that is being celebrated and being advertised. You might be feeling so joyous and loveless. Text 988 or call 988 on your cell phone for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, or go to 988lifeline.org online to speak to someone 24 hours a day, or text with someone 24 hours a day in English or Spanish to talk to you, to get you through whatever may be going on. Whatever's going on is a temporary situation. It can be worked through. Just have someone talk with you and it can be worked through. With that, we're actually wrapping it up, knocking it out of the park for 2023. Thank you so much for joining us for the Conversation Project for this year. Make sure you're staying limber and hydrated on task for all the grand things you are here to do going forward in the next year. 2024 can be a better year. Right now, you know me, I still don't have a house, working that whole issue, but should be a better year going forward because you can always do better. If you have another day, you can have a chance to do something better. If we have another year, let's try to make 2023 a past life, in 2024 a better life for all going forward. Thank you so much for joining us for this ride. Thank you for being with us in the Conversation Project. Stop by our feeds, go to our website, give us some love, and we'll give it back to you. See you next year.